After inheriting my parents' estate, I fled to an unfamiliar city to start a life of seclusion. My intention was to avoid those with ulterior motives from finding me, but unexpectedly, I encountered extreme weather and a zombie apocalypse. At that point, I completely gave up. After inheriting the estate following the death of my parents, I realized that the kindness people showed me was no longer pure. They expected something in return to continue being nice to me. As their demands became increasingly excessive, I decided to sell all the inheritance and fled one night. Looking at the over 400 million in my bank account, I figured I could never spend it all in this lifetime no matter what. With that in mind, in this unfamiliar city, I decided to start living the life I wanted. I bought the most secluded villa in a newly developed suburban estate. The moment the agent opened the door for me, I decided to buy it because it had a basement as big as the ground floor, spread over 3 levels. Feeling an extreme lack of security, living underground seemed like a very good option, and I was eager to try it. After that, I began a major renovation of the villa. As I mentioned, I had more money than I could spend, so I lavishly agreed to use top-tier materials for all the renovations, as suggested by the beaming face of the renovation company's owner. The thickest glass, supposedly impervious even to cannons, the toughest composite material doors that could only be unlocked with my iris as the password. The entire exterior of the house was wrapped in solar panel material, allowing the house to be completely self-powered. Advanced water treatment purifiers and fully automated household appliances. These weren't even the most crucial updates. The most important thing was that I made the 3 underground levels look exactly like the ones above. Every space upstairs was equipped with pinhole cameras, allowing me to clearly see everything inside and outside the house from the underground control room. This was all part of my self-protection against those who might be enraged by my escape and possibly engage in illegal actions. After all, greed can drive people mad. The renovation was completed in just over a month with my expedited funding. I moved into the villa's basement, completely satisfied, and started to madly shop online to fill up the house because it was too empty, which triggered my agoraphobia. As a child, my mother was strict, and I wasn't allowed to have snacks, so I always dreamed of owning a supermarket where I could eat whatever I wanted every day. Now that I had more money than I could spend, I decided to turn the villa into my personal supermarket. I began buying lots of supermarket shelves and stocked them like a regular supermarket. The first floor was for grains, oils, and beverages, the second floor for fresh vegetables, and the third floor for snacks, fruits, and household goods. As for how I could eat all this by myself, it was not a concern at all, given my wealth. I also set up a soundproof area in one corner of the villa, where I kept a few chickens for daily entertainment. I built a transparent doghouse outside with leftover construction materials, planning to buy a small dog to keep me company once I settled down. Looking at my fully stocked house, I felt a sense of security for the first time. That evening, I was in the villa's gaming room playing a racing game. Suddenly, the villa's smart system alerted me that a typhoon was about to make landfall, issuing an orange weather warning. I didn't pay much attention and continued to immerse myself in my game. When I went to the monitoring room to check the outside, it was only 3 in the afternoon, but it was already pitch black outside. I could only vaguely see tree branches swaying in the wind and hear the sound of torrential rain during flashes of lightning. I went upstairs to the freezer and cooked some dumplings. My appetite wasn't very strong, as staying home all the time meant I only needed 1 meal a day to satisfy my energy needs. However, this wasn't great for nutritional intake, so I ordered a large amount of vitamins and various supplements online. After eating the dumplings, I planned to watch a movie. I had installed a private cinema at home and hadn't used it yet. I decided to try it tonight. After some deliberation, I chose to watch Train to Busan. This kind of thrilling movie would really test the equipment of the cinema. I was eating snacks and watching a zombie biting scene when a shrill scream startled me. So real. I stuffed chips into my mouth, my eyebrows curving up in delight. Money, indeed, is a wonderful thing. No wonder everyone wants a piece of it. But just as the protagonist was having a heartfelt conversation, the piercing shriek of a zombie rang out again, this time clearer, sharper, and more grating than before. I paused the movie and walked out of my private cinema room, puzzled. It turned out, the sound wasn't coming from the movie. I hurried to the surveillance room. Outside, it was pitch black, nothing visible, but just as I was about to leave, a flash of lightning streaked across the sky, and a ghastly, pale, gray face with sharp fangs suddenly enlarged on the monitor. causing me to step back in shock and fall to the ground. What on earth was that? Could it be a real zombie? After turning on my phone, I saw "zombie apocalypse" trending on Twitter, even higher than major news events. The end of days has come, zombies everywhere. In the videos, hordes of blood-stained, stiff-limbed people crowded the screen. They chased after people with terrifying speed, just like in the zombie movies. I was so scared that my phone dropped to the ground. I stared nervously at the monitor, and after a while, another bolt of lightning revealed that horrifying face again. It snarled and howled, violently banging on my front door. Fortunately, after several failed attempts to break in, it stiffly walked away. My tense nerves finally relaxed, and I collapsed on the floor, drained. I stared at the ceiling, my brain momentarily offline. I couldn't understand why fate was treating me this way. A bizarre accident took my parents' lives and left me with an inheritance that made me a target. I had barely escaped, ready to live a carefree life, and then the apocalypse struck. I swore loudly, but then suddenly felt a sense of acceptance. Wait, maybe surviving this apocalypse isn't so bad after all. First, my house is not only sturdily built but also fully automated, unaffected by power or water cuts, and it even has a specially treated sewage system underground. Second, I also own a home supermarket, so food is not a worry at all, enough to last me at least 2 years. Lastly, the apocalypse has deterred those who were searching for me. I am actually 100 times safer now. Having realized all this, I began to truly settle into this new normal. Apart from no fresh supplies, everything was as I had anticipated. If I don't find rescue after 2 years, then perhaps there's no point in continuing. After finishing the movie in my private cinema, I slept soundly. The next morning, the storm had turned into a sunny day. The smart system informed me the temperature was nearing 45 degrees Celsius. No wonder I woke up sweating profusely. I turned on the air conditioning, grabbed an ice-cold Coke, and leisurely headed back to the surveillance room downstairs. This time, the monitor clearly showed the few zombies outside. One of them, dressed in a high-end tailored suit, looked like the CEO I had met when I moved in. He had been full of pride then, but now he was a terrifying sight. This villa area, being a new and costly property, had a very low occupancy rate. This meant it was relatively safe, at least for now. After watching the aimless zombies for a while, I lost interest. I went upstairs to the vegetable and meat section, picked some greens like crown daisy, shiitake mushrooms, enoki mushrooms, and a large piece of fresh beef. I also grabbed some meatballs and a pack of shrimp paste from the freezer, then headed to the snack section for a spicy hot pot base from Hidalgo, and cooked myself a hot pot, enjoying the drama series while savoring delicious food. Truly one of life's great pleasures. However, it seems I had the TV volume up too loud, which drew the attention of the zombies. Before long, zombies were crowding against the windows and doors, their thumping noises coming from all directions. I suddenly regretted not making the upstairs soundproof like the basement when I renovated the house. With a sigh, to avoid disturbances from these zombies, I had no choice but to move my hot pot feast to the basement. After a delightful meal, I realized that making the basement as comfortable as the upstairs was perhaps the wisest decision I had ever made. Although the house is exceptionally sturdy, in these apocalyptic times, you can't discount the possibility of others having advanced weapons. Being able to fend off zombies doesn't mean you can fend off everyone. I still need to be cautious. For this reason, I decided to make the upstairs look uninhabited. The basement has a secret door, with the switch cleverly hidden among the house's decorations. After entering, I can lock the door from inside, making it impossible to open even if someone finds the switch, as long as no one discovers it. Living here is quite safe. I moved the entire supermarket from upstairs to the basement, which was exhausting. I could only move a little each day, and it took me 20 days to complete the task. Since I was already living in the basement, I didn't need to make any significant changes. I also moved my chickens downstairs. However, there was no specific chicken coop, so I had to use a storage room instead. Cleaning this room became the most troublesome task of my day. It was so smelly. I often wondered why I decided to keep chickens in the first place. It wasn't until I found the first egg in the chicken coop that I was truly grateful for my seemingly unnecessary decision. Since fruits and vegetables spoil and rot, I quickly looked up how to grow my own while the internet was still available. The first problem I faced was the lack of soil. This meant that if I really wanted to start gardening, I'd have to risk leaving the house. Furthermore, there's no natural light in the basement. Fortunately, I found out that incandescent bulbs could be a substitute, but from watching zombie movies and observing their behavior over many days, I concluded that they are extremely sensitive to sound, light, and the scent of blood. The moment I step outside, they would definitely discover me. My frail arms and legs wouldn't be enough for even one bite. What should I do? While I was preoccupied with how to collect soil from outside, the situation worsened. More and more zombies appeared in the neighborhood, and the weather became extremely abnormal. Daytime temperatures soared to around 50 degrees Celsius, while at night they hovered around zero. Moreover, the power and water supply were cut off. This meant that homes without ample solar panels like mine couldn't use air conditioning anymore. Even though I had enough power, I dared not use it because the external unit of the air conditioner would make a loud noise when switched on. Not only would it attract zombies, but it could also lure those with ill intentions. The apocalypse isn't the end for everyone. For criminals, it's a time to revel. Fortunately, I stayed in the basement long term. Being 3 levels underground, the temperature inside was much cooler, only about 10 degrees. It was bearable during the day, and at night, the electric blanket made it quite comfortable. But my biggest concern was still the lack of soil. What would I do after I ran out of fruits and vegetables? The path of least resistance wasn't smooth either. One morning, when I wanted to check the news, I discovered that on the 32nd day of the zombie outbreak, the internet finally went down. Well, it lasted quite a while. Now, I could only spend my time playing offline games in the game room, since this complex is in the suburbs and has a very low occupancy rate. Aside from the zombies wandering outside, there were no particular incidents. So I didn't bother to check the surveillance cameras anymore and continued to live my quiet life. On the 40th day of the zombie outbreak, I still hadn't ventured out to find soil. I realized that I was quite afraid of dying, so I chose to give up. After eating a bowl of self-heating rice, I took a nap. I was suddenly awakened by a loud explosion, which startled me so much that it felt like someone had grabbed my heart. The pain came in waves. I hurriedly shuffled to the surveillance room in my slippers and was shocked to see 4 men in camouflage standing at the entrance through the monitor, solid as a rock. One of the men spat on the ground and cursed loudly. I watched helplessly as he pulled out something that looked like a bundle of explosives from the back of a jeep and placed it near the main gate. They then stepped back and pressed the remote control, setting off a deafening blast that echoed in my ears. A sense of foreboding gripped me. Sure enough, the tallest of the men, waving away the dust, joyfully announced to the others, "It's breached." Their excitement grew as they entered and saw the lavish interior. One short, plump man blissfully reclined on my expensive leather sofa, squinting his eyes, and remarked, "Never thought I'd live in a place like this one day." From their conversation, I learned they were 4 brothers who had banded together to scavenge for resources in these chaotic times. To make it easier to refer to them, I nicknamed them ABCD. The tallest was the eldest brother, the second brother had a scarred face and looked particularly fierce, the third was the plump man lounging on the sofa, the youngest, the fourth, was a gentle-looking man wearing glasses. It was clear they were up to no good, and they were heavily armed. Panic set in, and my first instinct was to lock the basement door. I then sacrificed my daily gaming time, opting instead to sit in the surveillance room munching on snacks, watching their every move. They unloaded a significant amount of supplies and water from the vehicle, clearly planning to use my house as their base. The talkative plump man revealed that zombies had massively broken out. The streets were deserted, swarming with zombies instead of living people. Thanks to their robust physiques, each had managed to gather quite a stash of resources. But in these apocalyptic times, individual strength was inadequate. Many survivors in the city had formed small groups to fend off rivals. They had raided a police station and acquired a vast arsenal. D, who used to be a biochemical researcher, had even developed a substantial amount of explosives. With their current capabilities, they were among the city's top-ranking groups, yet he remained cautious. He feared envy from others. If several groups united against them, they could be overwhelmed by sheer numbers, so caution was paramount. Thus, they sought refuge in this secluded villa area, mostly unfinished except for a few fully decorated ones. D proved to be quite the strategist, likely the brains of the group. He immediately noticed the solar panels installed outside my house, providing independent power supply. In the current extreme weather conditions, having electricity was crucial for survival, so they set their sights on my house. From their conversations, I also learned that zombies had no weaknesses except for their heads. Only by blowing up their brains would they truly die, otherwise, even a fall from the 50th floor would see them slowly getting back up. Looking at the outdoor surveillance, I indeed saw fallen zombies with their heads blown apart, dark blue blood pooled around them, a strong stench of decay wafted from the ventilation shaft. It hadn't smelled so bad before. Likely because their noise had attracted all the neighborhood zombies to my doorstep, where they killed them, causing the bodies to pile up not far from my house. I quickly turned on the air purification system. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but snicker to myself. Although I wasn't short on money, I hadn't installed a house-wide air purification system initially because the large floor-to-ceiling windows upstairs provided adequate ventilation. However, since the basement lacked ventilation, I not only improved its air circulation but also installed an air purification system. Now, these four were probably suffocating from the stench. I munched on cucumber-flavored chips, grinning from ear to ear. This should probably drive them away soon, but my laughter soon faded, because they had discovered traces of my presence. It looks like someone was living here not long ago. Dee squinted and searched around like a crafty old fox, upon hearing his words. The other three immediately started searching the house with their guns at the ready. They found some household trash I had left behind. The fruit peels hadn't fully decomposed yet. I slapped my forehead in annoyance, nervously watching the surveillance footage. Every time someone came close to the hidden door or the switch, my heart raced, terrified they would discover something. Luckily, they hadn't visited the other villas. Otherwise, they might have realized that this villa, like the others, had a huge basement, a perfect hiding spot. After searching the entire house and finding no one, C was the first to give up. He flopped onto my expensive sofa, complaining, "They've probably gone out to scavenge for supplies. There's nothing to eat here." A nodded and lowered his gun. "Still, we need to stay alert, in case the owner comes back or another group finds this place." B threw his gun on the table, grabbed a bottle of water, and reached for the air conditioner remote. But D snatched it away with a glare more menacing than before. Unfazed, D cautioned, "It's too noisy." After uttering a curse, B also lay down on the sofa. D frowned at him but didn't say much else. He turned on the air conditioning fan I had left in the room, and all four of them sighed in relief. I clenched my fists, regretting not having moved that fan. This house was secure, but we've broken the door, leaving a big gap, D noted. A agreed, like before, we'll take turns keeping watch at night. During the day, two of us will go out to look for supplies. Everyone concurred without objection. Soon, thunderous snoring filled the surveillance feed. Seeing they had stopped talking, I quickly turned the sound to its lowest setting. I patted my chest, relieved I hadn't been discovered. To comfort my anxious heart, I decided to treat myself to a good meal that night. I took out a few small pieces of frozen pork and beef to thaw and marinate with barbecue seasoning. I also took out a bag of frozen chicken wings and shrimp to grill. Normally, barbecue goes well with beer, but with those four menacing figures upstairs, I had to settle for a can of cola instead. Even though their search had moved outside, I remained uneasy and decided to move my bedding to the surveillance room to sleep on the floor. The night passed without incident. The next morning, after eating self-heating rice meals, A and B went out to scavenge for supplies. C continued to laze on the sofa. The epitome of sloth, D was upstairs in the study, fiddling with a pile of black objects. I watched him for a long time without understanding, but I guessed they were probably discussing explosives or something similar. Days passed peacefully, and I noticed D never had to go out for supplies. It was always A, B, and C taking turns, while he stayed in the upstairs study all day, making me worry he might blow up my study. Today, it was B and C's turn to go out for supplies. A was at the door figuring out how to reinforce it, and D was still in the upstairs study. I thought it would be another ordinary day and was about to head to the game room when suddenly, C's loud shouts broke the silence. "Big brother, something terrible has happened." "What's wrong?" I hurried out. I saw C supporting a blood-soaked B down from their jeep, the intense smell of blood drawing numerous zombies. A quickly pulled out his pistol and shot them in the head one by one, their bodies piling up in the yard, making the house smell even worse. As I turned on the exhaust fan, C had already helped B into the house. B's face was pale, half of his white t-shirt soaked red with blood, his eyes half closed, nearly going into shock. He leaned heavily on C, who was also covered in blood. It looked quite terrifying. I instantly became nervous and stared intently at the screen, curious about what exactly had happened to them. After A helped C lay B down on the couch, D came walking down from the second-floor staircase, his face tightened and his eyebrows slightly furrowed, displaying a serious demeanor. Was he bitten by a zombie? His voice was cold and emotionless. Hearing this, A's worried expression changed as he furrowed his brow and shot a direct look at C. C frantically waved his hands. No, no, it was those rascals from Zone A who shot him. A and D visibly relaxed, walking together to the couch to examine B's injury. I stuffed some spicy strips into my mouth, amused by their previous brotherly claims. Now that trouble had struck, it became clear how fragile these superficial brotherly ties were in the face of an apocalypse. Everyone was just worried about whether they could survive. Wow, that's spicy. I quickly took a sip of my milk tea and continued watching them. Earlier today, B and C had gone to the vicinity of Zone A to search for supplies. To understand why they ended up in this situation, I need to introduce the city I'm currently in, S-City. S-City is a coastal city adjacent to the South Sea. The entire city is shaped like a regular pentagon, and after the zombie outbreak, the survivors divided it into 5 zones, A, B, C, D, E, according to its 5 corners. Zone A was originally the commercial district of S-City, home to several large warehouse-style supermarkets, making it the richest area in terms of supplies. However, it's also the most dangerous area now because it was a weekend when the zombie outbreak occurred, leading to countless people being attacked and turned into zombies. Zone B is adjacent to the South Sea and was formerly a tourist hotspot, although there are some supplies. Most of the area has been submerged by seawater due to climatic changes and is basically inaccessible. Zone C, where I am, is a wealthy residential area with relatively high security housing and not many zombies, making it the safest part of the city. However, because the houses are difficult to break into and many wealthy people have weapons, people don't usually come here to search for supplies unless they are desperate. Zone D is S-City's research district. Known nationwide for its various biochemical research institutes, it's currently under government control, working on ways to eradicate the zombies. Zone E is the poor district of S-City. This area now has the least supplies and a significant number of zombies. The zombie outbreak was very sudden, and the sky turned pitch black, leaving most people outside as fodder for the zombies. Those who stayed at home without much stored supplies ran out after about 10 days to half a month and had to risk going out to find food. At that point, physical fitness became a critical survival factor. Strong individuals like A, B, C, and D took the initiative, while those who weren't strong enough faced grim fates. Except for Zone B, many such spontaneously formed squads have occupied strategic positions in the other zones, especially in Zone A, because of the large warehouse supermarkets. Many people's first instinct was to rush there, resulting in it being the most crowded initially. After more than 2 weeks of chaos, only 3 teams remain there. One of them is led by a man known as Big Slick Back, who always wears black sunglasses and was famous before the apocalypse for running an underground casino in S-City, possessing a large arsenal of lethal weapons. Therefore, he's the strongest among the 3 teams, with over 20 members. Unexpectedly, today B and C thought they'd try their luck on the edge of Zone A, only to run into the squad led by Big Slick Back. As soon as they showed up, Big Slick Back didn't hesitate to shoot at them. B and C had to run back, but since Big Slick Back's squad was larger, they were soon surrounded. Had it not been for their previous encounters with Big Slick Back, they might have been thrown directly into a horde of zombies. Big brother, Big Slick Back is demanding that we hand over the goods. C lowered his head, speaking in a faint voice. I had to crank the volume up to its maximum just to barely make out what he was saying. Soil? What soil? I widened my eyes in curiosity, suddenly finding the spicy snack in my hand less appealing. At the mention of soil, A's expression darkened abruptly, a gloom settling over him. D, on the other hand, remained quite composed, as if he had anticipated everything. He stood aside, arms crossed, leisurely watching the drama unfold. You agreed? A's voice was tight, as if a foul rag was stuck in his throat, his tone both choked and harsh. C seemed even more bewildered, bowing his head like a child, barely managing a quiet, yeah. After a long pause, D scoffed, moving aside to drink some water. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been as simple as them firing a shot at second brother. It's very likely we wouldn't have made it back. A, usually so warm and loyal, was now icy cold. Since you've agreed, I assume you didn't come back alone. Did you? As soon as he finished speaking, I saw through the surveillance monitor at the gated jeep pulling in. and 3 men stepped out. The one with the slick back hair wearing black sunglasses must be the slick back they were talking about. Since Justin already guessed it, there's no need for me to waste more words. Damn, this is just like a real-life gangster movie. My interest piqued. I hooked over a nearby box of snacks with my foot, rummaged through it, and started munching on a pack of pickled chicken feet as I watched them start to brawl. So, really is Justin. He had just sternly refused Slick Back, showing how important that soil is to everyone. Slick Back really had guts, showing up with just 2 men, but their weapons were clearly superior to Justin's group. I watched as Justin, C, and D shot towards the door while retreating to the second floor. Slick Back and his men seized the opportunity to try and break into the house. My God. A gunfight right in front of me, how thrilling, but my excitement didn't last long. It turned tragic again, because Slick Back's weapons were significantly superior. They quickly breached the house. At that moment, I realized Justin was covered in blood, apparently having been shot at some point. I didn't expect him to be so decisive, not even caring if the house might collapse. He lit the explosive package D had prepared in the second-floor study and hurled it at Slick Back's group. With a loud boom, the whole house shook violently. Fortunately, I had used top-grade materials, so the house didn't collapse, but I ended up covered in wall debris, coughing violently for a long time before I could catch my breath. When I finally cleared up and looked up at the monitor, I was stunned. My surveillance system had tripped, turning completely black. Worse still, the incandescent light overhead flickered and finally went out with a snap. This was absolutely ridiculous. The epitome of absurdity. My solar power system had been destroyed by the blast. Fortunately, due to concerns about insufficient sunlight during the rainy season in the south, the house design company installed a generator in the basement and stocked 20 boxes of diesel for me. I hurried to the 3rd basement level, about to start the generator, when a sudden idea made me stop. Wait a minute, all the house's electricity is connected. If there are still survivors upstairs, especially the highly intelligent D, they'd realize something was amiss if the power was out and then suddenly came back on. That would clearly reveal that someone else was still in the house. Now, with the surveillance system down, I have no idea what the situation outside is like. During the day, the basement temperature is quite comfortable, but at night, the temperature drops to -10 degrees Celsius, which would be deadly without an electric blanket. Biting my thumb, I began to ponder my options. Originally a humanities student, I knew nothing about electrical circuits, so trying to fix it myself was out of the question. However, I vaguely remembered the renovation worker mentioning a master switch valve that could separate the upstairs and downstairs circuits and even control each room individually, but at the time, I didn't really pay attention to where that master switch valve was located. It couldn't be upstairs, could it? I thought in panic, my eyes widening, looking at my digital watch. It showed 3:20 p.m. The temperature usually drops sharply at 6 p.m., giving me just over 2.5 hours to find that master switch valve. I grabbed a flashlight and started searching from the 3rd basement level upwards, room by room. By 5:45 p.m., after searching all the rooms in the basement, I still hadn't found the master switch valve. Sitting down dejectedly, I lamented my bad luck. All I wanted was to be at peace, to watch the chaos outside as if it were just a movie. Why was that so hard? Just as I was grumbling, a loud explosion suddenly came from the passage leading to the ground floor, startling me so much that I quickly looked up towards the door, but it was too dark to see anything. Was someone coming down? I quickly turned off the flashlight and listened intently for a while. There was no sound. All was still quiet. Bang, just as I was letting out a sigh of relief, another loud noise came through. I then realized that the sound was coming from outside the basement's secret door. I turned on the flashlight and slowly moved towards it. The bang, bang, bang sounds grew louder, like gunfire. As I reached the secret door and pressed my ear against it, I could faintly hear men's angry cursing. It was muffled due to the soundproofing, so I couldn't clearly make out what was being said, but it seemed to be Justin and Dee's voices. They appeared to be arguing about something, followed by a gunshot, and then silence returned. Just as I decided to continue searching for the switch valve, a sudden thud resounded, and a piece of metal in front of my eyes dented inward, shaped like a bullet. I was so frightened that I didn't dare move, my legs trembling as if they had engines attached. Hopefully, they wouldn't come over to check. Time passed, and it was so long that the surrounding temperature had dropped significantly. Fogging my breath, before I slowly slid to the ground and hugged my legs tightly. It was terrifying. Earlier, watching the commotion was thrilling and interesting, but having it happen right next to me was just too frightening. After waiting a while longer to make sure no one was around, I carefully massaged my stiff body and slowly stood up. Due to the low temperature and sitting for a long time, I could only slowly climb up using the walls for support. Suddenly, my hand touched something that felt like a plastic box. I quickly turned on the flashlight to check, and sure enough, it was the switch valve I had been searching for. Thankfully, the labels were clear. I hurriedly shut off the upstairs circuits, then returned to the frigid third basement to fill the generator with diesel and start it. The humming sound lasted a while before the lights throughout the room turned on. By then, I was nearly frozen stiff. I hurried back to the second-floor surveillance room. Without even glancing outside, I quickly turned on the electric blanket and wrapped myself tightly in the covers. Once I had calmed down a bit, I finally felt composed enough to look at the surveillance footage. Fortunately, the pinhole cameras hidden in the corners of the walls were not affected by the earlier explosion and were still transmitting clear images of the outside situation. I had no idea until I looked. And what I saw gave me quite a shock. The living room on the first floor was a complete mess, covered in plaster dust. Big Allback and his two underlings were obliterated by the blast, vanished without a trace. I really wondered how someone that foolish had ever managed to assemble a squad that dominated Zone A. Then, amidst the debris, lay two bodies soaked in blood. One, with eyes wide open in death, was Justin, and the other, a short and stout figure lying on its side, was undoubtedly the deceased. I blinked. Indeed, brute strength alone isn't enough. Those with brains clearly have the upper hand. The scene was too horrific, and combined with the cold I had endured earlier and the lack of appetite for dinner, I just ate a few biscuits and quickly fell into a deep sleep. However, I slept poorly, haunted in my dreams by a pair of sinister eyes behind glasses, with bags under my eyes. I groggily prepared breakfast the next morning. I was so hungry from not eating the night before that my stomach ached. I cooked a bowl of noodles and cracked a fresh egg I had gotten the day before into it. I was about to add some vegetables when I realized that the vegetables and fruits from the supermarket were all rotten and spoiled, leaving me with nothing edible. After searching for a while, I managed to find a small handful of yellowed greens to cook with. After eating, I sat in front of the surveillance monitors, resting my chin in my hands, deep in thought. I hadn't anticipated the zombie outbreak, and by the time I realized what was happening, it was too late to prepare. I've only survived this long by sheer luck, although I still have plenty of vitamin tablets. A continuous lack of fresh vegetables and fruits will definitely lead to health problems. I need soil. I glanced at the surveillance screen, propping my cheek with my hand, because the front door had been blasted open, and the heavy scent of blood lingered. Several zombies were devouring Justin and C's bodies, which were now barely recognizable as human. There were no zombies at the door. If I could keep the zombies distracted by the bodies for just a bit longer, could I possibly go out and find some soil? Just as I was considering how to attract the zombies' attention, suddenly, the sound of car engines approached. 3 jeeps arrived in a rush. Quickly, several men in military boots jumped out. They entered my villa, dispatching all the zombies inside with headshots, and after a thorough search, it seemed they were looking for something. Soon, a man with a face like a monkey showed a metal chain to the leader wearing sunglasses. The leader's expression changed immediately as he exclaimed, "Big brother." I looked closely at the metal chain, and the more I looked, the more familiar it seemed. After a moment, I remembered it had been hanging around Big Allback's neck just yesterday. It seemed these men were likely Big Allback's remaining underlings. After inspecting the situation inside, the man with the sunglasses clenched his jaw and led everyone away. I guessed they were probably off to find D. The situation was clear now. D had become the last man standing, taking the much-coveted soil with him. What could that soil do? Why was everyone after it? If only I could get my hands on that soil. A smile flickered across my face, then I quickly sobered up and slapped my face, thinking, that's like licking blood off a knife's edge. Best not to daydream. Unexpectedly, not long after, the soil actually came to me. This morning, I was nibbling on a small bread roll. Today marked the 103rd day since the zombie outbreak, and many of the supermarket's foods had expired. It had been a long time since I had tasted vegetables or fruits. The only time I did was when eating a self-heating hot pot. Truly a sad state of affairs. My heart was dead, but my mouth wasn't. still craving those vegetables and fruits, terrifyingly so. Sigh, instantly, the bread roll in my mouth lost its flavor, but I had to eat, otherwise, I'd starve. Cough, cough, cough. Suddenly, a blood-covered figure, whether a zombie or a human I couldn't tell, burst into the surveillance screen, causing me to choke on my bread roll. I almost ran out of breath in one go. After I finally managed to swallow, I realized that the disheveled, emaciated man was D, who had been on the run for over a month. After he had killed all the wandering zombies in the house, he staggered up to the second floor. Then, he actually found a small bag of black stuff in a decorative incense burner in the study. I couldn't believe it. This guy had actually been hiding that highly sought-after soil here all along. Quite boldly yet meticulously, a smug smile appeared on his lips, but his pleasure didn't last long before he started coughing violently, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. It seemed he had been ruthlessly pursued over the past month and had sustained serious injuries. After securing the soil on his person, he lay down right there. The outside must have reeked, with several groups of people having come and gone, and zombie corpses everywhere inside and outside the house. But he seemed not to smell it at all, quickly falling into a deep sleep, his light snoring even audible through the surveillance footage. I gritted my teeth, realizing I hadn't paid attention to the surveillance earlier and had missed the fact that the soil had always been in this house. Otherwise, I could have taken it while they were away, patting my stomach, which hadn't seen vegetables or fruits for over a month. I silently mourned for a minute. What a suffering, my dear. But seeing the fresh zombie corpses on the first and second floors of the villa, I thought again that even if I had known, I probably wouldn't have dared to go up and retrieve it, especially since I didn't have lethal weapons like they did. Tired of watching Dee sleep, and with the weather being too hot, I went down to the large bathtub on the second basement level and filled it with water for a good soak. Seeing Dee's scruffy appearance, it seemed like there wasn't much water left outside either. Fortunately, the weather was unpredictable, with thunderstorms every day, but the water flowing into the sewers, which I observed, was slightly red and seemed unsuitable for direct use as domestic water. If it weren't for the advanced water purification system I had installed, I wouldn't dare to use water as recklessly as I do now. After my bath, I made a Sprite and noodle dish inspired by Huang Lei, refreshing, greasy cutting, and appetizing, though sadly lacking some cucumber. I don't know if Dee smelled it or what, but while I was enjoying my meal, his stomach started growling. He rummaged through a small bag on his back for a long time and pulled out an energy bar, without any water. He just made do and ate it dry. I felt thirsty just watching him. Dee truly was a genius. I had thought he only knew about explosives, but that afternoon, he took down the damaged solar panels outside, tinkered with them, and connected them to the air conditioning cables in the study. And actually got the air conditioner running. Checking the smart system for the weather, I saw the outdoor temperature had reached a scorching 55 degrees Celsius. Taking advantage of his use of the air conditioner, I quickly turned on the basement's air conditioning as well, so the noise from the external unit wouldn't expose me. God, life with air conditioning was blissful. Just like that, Dee settled in upstairs. He was indeed severely injured and found it difficult to move around on rainy days. He would collect rainwater in a container, add a chemical reagent to it, and the water would become clear and drinkable again. Recently, he had taken out some mysterious soil and placed it in a corner of the study's balcony. After observing for several days, I finally understood why this mysterious soil was so coveted by everyone. Just 3 days after Dee planted cucumber seeds in it, a large cucumber had already grown amidst lush branches and leaves. Listening to him crunching on the fresh, crisp cucumber, I couldn't help but swallow my saliva. I admit, I was envious. That soil is truly miraculous. After finishing the cucumber, Dee licked his fingers with a look of continued desire, chuckling, I guess I'm probably the only one who can enjoy cucumbers now, huh? But his expression soon darkened, and his eyes behind his glasses turned fiercely cold, sending a chill through me as I watched from behind the camera. He slowly walked over to the corpses of Justin and C on the first floor, stared at them for a while, and then spoke. Justin, don't blame me. Without me, you wouldn't even know about this soil, let alone have it. This soil is limited. It was only ever enough for one person's use. You wanted to use it to lure others to join your team and fulfill your grand ambitions of dominance, so don't blame me for acting first. I covered my mouth in shock, realizing that the internal conflict I had overheard that day was because of this, but seeing Dee's sinister demeanor, I knew that even if Justin hadn't had those ideas, Dee would have found a way to eliminate them anyway. After all, he knew how to use the soil from the beginning but pretended to be researching it all those days, not using it outright, precisely to keep Justin and the others at bay. Indeed, this soil isn't like ordinary soil, merely scattering seeds in it is useless. I carefully observed every step Dee took in planting the cucumbers and discovered the key. Before planting, the soil had to be sprinkled with a lot of water, just enough to barely cover it. After sowing the seeds, no water should be sprinkled, and it only needed an hour of sunlight each day. In 3 days, the plant would quickly flower and bear fruit. However, it would only produce one fruit, and after harvesting, the original vine would quickly wither. I pondered over the small bag of seeds next to the soil on the second floor. These seeds were definitely not ordinary. Suddenly, I noticed a few characters written on the seed bag. I zoomed in on the surveillance footage and saw it read, S City 3rd Research Institute. This institute is a major biological research facility, famous nationwide for many inventions. It seems this soil is their latest research breakthrough, and somehow Dee came to know about it. I glanced at Dee, and then it struck me, maybe Dee is a researcher from the 3rd Research Institute, otherwise, such confidential material would generally be inaccessible to the public. In the days that followed, I eagerly watched Dee on the surveillance camera enjoying various vegetables and fruits. I chewed on chicken feet while he ate carrots. I swallowed biscuits while he baked sweet potatoes. I munched on spicy strips while he even bit into a tomato. Unbearable, yet I had to endure. Deflated, I ran to the game room and played a set of boxing on the AR sensory game machine, sweating it out before I felt a bit better. I had no idea how he could stomach that foul smell outside. Just like that, another mundane month passed by, and as I gradually lost interest in the stored food, a large drone suddenly flew into the neighborhood. The drone's loudspeaker could be heard from afar, and I quickly turned up the volume on the surveillance. Attention all surviving residents, due to the large number of zombies, the government is unable to destroy them one by one and will conduct a unified bombardment in each area according to the zombie population in 1 month's time. Please hurry to the safe zone at the D District Biological Research Building to avoid accidental injuries. I really am foolish. Why is it so hard just to lay low, in the surveillance? D seemed thoughtful after listening to the broadcast, and I had no idea when he would head to D District. I had to wait for him to leave before I could try to make my way there. I didn't think my house could really withstand a bombardment. After all, my roof wasn't made of bomb-proof glass. As I thought this, D also looked up at the roof, then his expression darkened again, and he frowned, seemingly troubled. Could it be that he didn't want to go to the safe zone? I stroked my chin. That makes sense. The safe zone is located at the Biological Research Building, which is exactly where the 3rd Research Institute is situated. Once he goes there, his presence will definitely be exposed, but if he doesn't go, the both of us will surely be blown up here. Every day thereafter, I was so anxious that I could neither eat nor drink, praying constantly that D would leave soon so I could make my move earlier. However, D just wandered around the villa daily, checking here and there without any sign of leaving. Just when I was burning with impatience, I saw D dismantling my doghouse in the yard that day. The doghouse had been built from leftover construction materials. The builder had asked what I planned to do with the scraps, and thinking I'd settle down and get a corgi, I paid him to construct a transparent doghouse. But then the zombie outbreak happened unexpectedly. Could it be that D, as I suspected, after removing the glass from the doghouse, D climbed onto the roof and added another layer of glass over the cement structure, glass that was rumored to withstand even cannon fire, but the roof was still too large. The sight of the unfinished corner made my heart skip a beat, yet D seemed very satisfied. He was ready to take a gamble, and I had no choice but to gamble along with him. I was really panicking. I really thought I was going to die. After modifying the roof, D started experimenting with explosives daily. I watched him on the surveillance cameras as he handled various powdery substances, turning them into small explosive packages and setting them aside. In a couple of days, the packages had piled up like a small mountain. Finally content, he clapped his hands, finished a tomato, and then packed the explosive packages into a large bag to carry downstairs. He cleaned up the rotting zombie corpses in the yard haphazardly before choosing a spot to start digging and burying the explosives. By the time everything was ready, he was drenched in sweat and nearly sun-dried from the intense heat. I checked the weather system. The outdoor temperature was 57 degrees Celsius, In such extreme weather, even without zombies, it would be hard for ordinary people to survive. 2 days later, only 10 days remained until the government's final ultimatum. I was so anxious that I got a huge blister on my mouth. But Dee remained leisurely, enjoying the air conditioning. Eating fruits and nibbles every day. Actually, we hardly saw any zombies in our neighborhood anymore. One reason was that this place was very remote with few residents, so there weren't many zombies to begin with. The second reason was that after several run-ins with Dee and others, the few remaining zombies had mostly been shot in the head, so every day, I prayed that the government would not indiscriminately bomb the area. I really didn't want to die, but days flew by quickly. And tomorrow was the deadline. I'd given up. It was too late to do anything now. Whatever would be, not knowing whether I could survive tomorrow. I checked all the remaining food on the shelves. There were still many snacks left, plenty of self-heating hot pots and rice meals, and some cookies. While searching, I surprisingly found a large jar of mixed fruit preserves. God knows how long it had been since I had any fruit. Excitedly, I opened it and grabbed a big slice of peach to chew on. It was absolutely divine. While enjoying it, suddenly, loud booming noises came from the surveillance room, startling me so much that I ran back with the fruit jar in hand. Could the bombing have started early? Indeed, there was a bombing, but it wasn't the government bombing zombies. It was Dee's buried explosives blasting people. The guy with the big back head and sunglasses had come again. From the surveillance, I could see chaos in the yard, with limbs being blown up here and there, a bloody mess almost like the arrival of the Grim Reaper. If it weren't for the fact that I had become desensitized watching gruesome zombies over the past 3 months, I would have probably been vomiting in the toilet by now. Goodness, the sunglasses guy had directly parked 10 jeeps in a row in front of the villa, a formidable display. It seemed he had recruited many more squads over this period, rapidly expanding his influence. Seeing his assault team dead and wounded, he was so furious he was sniffing angrily, then gestured with his hand for his subordinates to hold back. Since it wasn't the government bombing, I relaxed, turned the air conditioning down a notch, and continued my day. Holding a can of fruit, I ate and watched. Duncan, I advise you to come out on your own. So his name was Duncan. I chewed on the pear in my mouth, savoring its sweetness. Duncan furrowed his brow, lost in thought. I figured he hadn't expected the man in sunglasses to gather so many squads so quickly. Otherwise, with the explosives he had planted, killing about 20 people would have been no issue. Seeing no response from Duncan, the man in sunglasses whispered something to a lackey, and soon they were hauling a man-portable rocket launcher off the third jeep. Don't ask me how I knew. It was just something I had recently seen on a weapons analysis post about the Russia-Ukraine conflict on Twitter. I nervously stared at my ground-level villa, wondering if the glass touted to withstand artillery could really hold up. If it couldn't, the whole house would be blown away, and I wouldn't have to wait for the government to demolish it. My palms became sticky and my back soaked. The air conditioning made me shiver with cold. Fortunately, before they could set up the launcher, Duncan realized this wouldn't work and finally started negotiating with the man in sunglasses. I exhaled softly, relieved. Zach, you just want the soil, right? I can give it to you. Duncan was bold, indeed, standing with a black bag filled with soil and seeds right at the blasted open gate, facing Zach across the yard. Just get me safely to Zone D, and the soil is yours. How about it, really? Zach leaned forward excitedly. Of course, it's true. I know you want this soil because you don't want to submit to the government and wish to dominate in this apocalyptic world. I'm different. Once I'm in the safe zone, I have no use for this soil. Damn. I couldn't help but put down my can of fruit and applaud Duncan. His mind worked fast. He clearly wanted the soil as well, but the situation forced him to give it up. Duncan had 2 reasons for not returning to the safe zone previously. One was because the journey from Zone C to D was long, and Zone D was heavily surrounded by zombies, making it difficult for one person to break in safely. The other was that he was associated with the Third Research Institute, and if he returned to the safe zone, the government would surely investigate him thoroughly, and he wouldn't be able to keep the soil. So originally, he didn't plan to go to the safe zone but had been fortifying my villa, hoping to take a gamble here. But now, with the rocket launcher aimed close and the villa's door still broken, the chances of surviving were much slimmer, so he quickly switched strategies, offering the soil in exchange for safe passage back to the safe zone. Although he might not be able to eat fruits and vegetables every day, The soil was developed by the Third Research Institute. Having some now meant more could be cultivated in the safe zone, and without solid evidence of the soil, even if the government suspected him. They couldn't deal with him directly. The yard fell silent for a moment. In my view, Duncan still left a huge pitfall for Zack. After all, the usage of the soil was so specific, yet he gave no hints. Zack, having obtained the soil, wouldn't know how to use it properly, and the food grown from this soil would barely suffice for one person, yet Duncan made it sound like it could feed thousands. Zack wasn't foolish. He must have guessed that Duncan wouldn't hand over the soil so easily. But he couldn't figure out where the trap lay, so he looked conflicted. Both parties were at a standoff, neither making a move. Just then, the sound of a loudspeaker broadcast came from afar. Soon, I saw on the monitor the same large drone I had seen a month ago, still carrying a giant loudspeaker. Attention, a sudden outbreak of a zombie horde has occurred, moving from Zone A towards Zone D. The government will begin bombing the horde immediately. It is expected to pass through Zone C in half an hour. Residents who have not reached the safe zone should find a secure hiding place to avoid accidental injury. Hearing the broadcast, I bit into a peach and, startled, let it roll onto the floor. Duncan, Zack, and their groups all tensed up. If we only have half an hour left, we need to leave right away. After discussing with his associate, the man in sunglasses shouted to D. We're short on time, throw the soil over here first. If everything checks out, we'll head out immediately. D thought for a moment and didn't say much. After all, he knew the correct use of the soil and wasn't worried about the man in sunglasses and his group reneging on their deal. With a wave of his hand, D tossed the black bag into the air, tracing a graceful arc. Everyone looked up, and the man in sunglasses even took a couple of steps forward to catch it, but in a flash, as the black bag reached its highest point in the air, it collided with a drone that was flying erratically. A snap sound was heard as the bag's flight path was interrupted, and it fell into the courtyard of the villa. Everyone rushed towards it nervously, only to see it roll on the ground and then, surprisingly, roll right into a storm drain covered by a manhole lid, disappearing from sight in the blink of an eye, since the plan was to plant a large number of flowers and plants in the courtyard. The drain cover was designed with a flower-like pattern and was large to facilitate quick drainage. The size of the black bag was just right to fall through it. Everyone outside was frustrated, but my body reacted faster than my mind. Before I could even grasp what was happening, my hands had already unscrewed the sewer connector cap. Due to the high outdoor temperature, there wasn't much water left in the sewer, just some dust falling lightly. Was it stuck halfway? Just as I was about to peek into the drain pipe, thud, a black bag hit my head. My heart raced, and my hands trembled uncontrollably. Could I really be this lucky? I tremblingly took down the black bag, gingerly opened it, and indeed, it was filled with black soil, on top of which lay a small plastic bag stuffed with numerous seeds. Dear heavens, you really favor me. I jumped around excitedly. It took a while before I calmed down. Now was not the time to rejoice. The area was about to be bombed, and I had to survive this ordeal first. I hurried back to the surveillance room. Outside, chaos had erupted. The man in sunglasses, furious at not getting the soil, decided not to take D to the safety zone. D, however, thought it was just an accident, not his fault. Desperate, D knew he couldn't make it to the safety zone on his own in such a short time if the man in sunglasses didn't take him. He could only promise to find another bag of soil in the safety zone to compensate him later. But the man in sunglasses wasn't so easily fooled. Kicking D aside, he waved his hand, and his men collectively got into the jeep. D could only watch helplessly as they drove away in a grand manner. He pounded the ground in anger, his face unsightly. I clenched the black bag in my hand with a bit of fear. The drone had already flown away. I checked the time. In about 10 minutes, this area would be heavily bombed. D, not giving up, looked into the manhole cover for a long time before dejectedly returning to the villa's second-floor study. Sitting there with his head bowed, lost in thought, time flew by. Suddenly, a loud explosion came from afar, accompanied by terrifying, piercing screams. The sound of explosions was incessant, and the ground trembled slightly. I wrapped myself tightly in a blanket, my eyes wide open. Staring at the surveillance footage, it was still hard to see anything. D, looking grave, ran down from upstairs and stood by the front door, peering outside. The wailing and explosions grew louder, and the ground shook more violently. Finally, the surveillance footage faintly captured the edge of a zombie horde. a large group marching towards us. Their faces were pale and gray, with patches of torn cloth hanging from their bodies, and their faces grotesquely displayed terrifying fangs. Occasionally, shells exploded among the zombies, but because of their large numbers and lack of pain sensation, they still moved forward relentlessly. As the zombie horde drew closer, the pungent smell of blood from the recent explosions at the door instantly caught their attention, stirring them into a frenzy. I swear, I had never seen so many zombies rushing towards me in my life. D, terrified, quickly ran back upstairs. His legs shook like springs, clearly frightened. The zombies wildly tore at each other in the yard, some even breaking through the damaged doors into the villa. The ordinary doors inside the villa were no match for the zombies, and soon, following the scent, they broke into the study. D stood ready with a gun. Initially, he managed to shoot a few zombies, but as the noise grew louder, attracting more and more zombies, it didn't take 2 minutes before he was surrounded. His hand was bitten by a zombie, and amid his agonized screams, another zombie bit his neck, blood gushing out as countless zombies swarmed him. In the footage, D was no longer visible, only a dense mass of ferocious zombies roaring. Boom, a shell landed in the yard. Boom, another shell hit the roof. I watched the surveillance screen in horror. Thankfully, the renovation company didn't cut corners. The glass really was bomb-proof. Only a bit of dust had fallen from the roof, which remained intact. Boom, but the government was relentless. Another shell hit the roof, unfortunately striking a weak spot. The shell exploded on the roof, blowing it wide open. The entire villa shook violently, starting to collapse massively from the 3rd floor. The surveillance screen went completely dark. I couldn't see anything. I covered my head with a blanket, clutching the black bag in my arms, silently praying. It was strange how the soil had mysteriously made its way to me. I was so lucky. Surely I could survive this ordeal. The sound of the exploding shells seemed as if it was right next to me. I hugged myself tightly, not knowing how long I waited. It felt like an instant and yet like a century had passed. Gradually, the booming sound ceased, and the zombies' howling grew fainter and fainter. I cautiously peeked out from under the blanket. The incandescent light was still quietly shining. It seemed I had won the bet. Excited, I crawled out from under the blanket and ran through all 3 underground levels. The electricity was still on, and the water was running. Apparently, when the villa above had collapsed, the sturdy glass had piled up over the basement, shielding it from the bombardment. So, apart from no longer being able to see the outside surveillance, my life in this small space hadn't been affected at all. I looked down at the black bag tightly gripped in my hand and smiled slightly. Now, I could eat fresh vegetables and fruits every 3 days, which was simply perfect. I planted cucumber seeds just like D had taught me. 3 days later, I made Sprite cold noodles again, and adding cucumber strips made it many times more delicious. Another 3 days, and I was eating scrambled eggs with tomatoes. My chickens were laying more eggs lately. Later, I enjoyed green beans, strawberries, potatoes, sweet potatoes. I hadn't expected that the bag of seeds would contain so many varieties of fruits and vegetables, greatly satisfying my gluttonous cravings. I don't know what the situation is like outside now, but every day I play games, read books, take baths, jog, and cook delicious food. Life couldn't be more blissful. I believe that the next time a drone flies over with a loudspeaker, it will be when humanity has overcome this disaster, and I'm certain I'll smoothly make it to that day. Enough said. I'm off to have some barbecue, lettuce-wrapped meat with beer. Absolutely perfect. That's all the story. What do you think of this story? Share with me in the comments section. What would you do if you were in this situation? Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.